Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Myers. I want to welcome you to this very interesting and I hope informative community forum on workforce development here in Berks County. I'm going to turn it over quickly to my colleague from Spotlight PA Berks, Jose Del Jose Delgado and Rivera. And Jose, you've got a few comments you want to make and things you want to talk about, and then we'll come back and I'll go through our ground rules and introduce our speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this community forum. I'm the general manager of Spotlight PA Berks. If this is your first time joining, beginning in January, the community forums previously presented by the Berks Alliance and the Berks County Community Foundation um, are now under Spotlight PA. Spotlight PA is an independent, nonpartisan, and nonprofit newsroom dedicated to high quality investigative and public service journalism about Pennsylvania, state government, and urgent statewide issues. We were founded in 2019, but the Berks Bureau was opened in January last year. Um, we're happy to welcome Dave to continue hosting the community forums under Spotlight PA Berks, and I want to encourage all of you to sign up to our free newsletter, Good Day Berks, to continue receiving information about future events, in addition to curated local stories, updates, and community highlights. I will paste the link in the chat in a moment. Also, we're going to be hosting an open house on March 18th at 5 p.m. at the John Post Center in downtown Reading. To learn, you will be able to learn more about our bureau and get a behind the scenes of our investigations by investigative reporter Amanda Fries. I will also post the link in the chat. And world breaking news, save the date. Spotlight PA Berks will be celebrating an Ideas Festival on October 3rd at the Google Works. This is a community center day-long event designed to bring together community leaders, innovators, and organizations from across Pennsylvania, hosted here in Berks County. The purpose of the event is to create a collaborative space where communities can share practical, proven solutions to local challenges, exchange ideas, and inspire new approaches rooted in creativity and civic engagement. The format emphasizes accessibility, creativity, and interaction rather than the traditional boring conference structure. If you have a topic, speaker, or idea that we should consider, I'm gonna also post a link to a form that we have so you can share that with us. And now the disclaimer before passing it back to Dave. Spotlight PA provides community forums as a space for public discussions and engagement. The views, opinions, statements, and remarks expressed by speakers or participants are those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views, editorial judgment, or positions of Spotlight PA, its employees, board members, funders, or affiliates. So thank you again for joining, and now let's go back to Dave.
Thank you, Jose. I'm going to cover some quick ground rules and then I'm going to introduce our speaker. What we do is we ask people to mute their microphones, but keep your cameras on so know we're dealing with live people. Use the chat function that you'll find at the bottom of the screen to submit your comments and questions. Once we get done with the formal presentation, we'll move to those comments and questions. And if we don't get through all the comments and questions, we'll share them with our presenter and have her response sent back to you. We record the program. We share the recording with everybody who registered. Feel free to share it with others if you want. Make use of it. We think it's an important and interesting topic, and we want to keep people informed and engaged in what's going on. We will try to have a hard stop around 1 o'clock. And we will be not only sending the video to everybody who registered for the program, but we'll be posting it on the Spotlight Berks website and sharing it with our friends at BCTV. So with that, I'm really pleased to introduce our speaker, Amber Columbo, who is the director of the Berks County Workforce Development Board, a position she's had since last fall. And as you're going to learn, she's walking into a middle of a lot of activity happening at the Workforce Development Board. Um, at the Workforce Development Board, she leads the planning, fiscal, administrative, and management functions of the board. The board identifies long-term strategy, workforce development needs for the broader community, uh, proposes strategies to meet those needs, sets priorities, and builds partnerships, which are important to those ambitions being heard. Today, you're going to hear a lot about the ambitions that Amber is going to be carrying out over the next couple of years. So with that, Amber, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dave. Happy to be here and discuss a number of topics. To start with the Berks County Workforce Development Board, our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act 4-year strategic plan, Berks County industry sector priorities, our partnerships, and most importantly, what everybody's really looking forward to is our Berks Workforce 2030 study that was fully adopted by our full board in December. So our board chair is Jenny Batista. She has been our board chair for the last year, has been a great board chair, and I'll kind of dive into our board structure as we move on. So Jose, you can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned today, I am going to talk about our board. We are a county department, our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, also known as WIOA, our 4-year strategic plan, industry sector priorities, partnerships, our local PA career link of Berks County, and then our 2030 study. Was it? Okay. So the Berks County Workforce Development Board has been appointed by the Berks County Board of Commissioners under WIOA of 2014. That is our current legislation of WIOA. There are discussions, as many of you may be aware, of reauthorization of WIOA, which would change service delivery and outcome opportunities for our funding that directly funnels into our local PA career link. Our board's composition is driven by the local L&I governance policy. Currently, we have 23 board members making up business representation, workforce representation, education, governmental and community and economic development representation. At the board, like Dave mentioned, our goals are to identify long-term strategic workforce development needs within the community, proposing strategies to meet the needs by setting priorities, building partnerships to help align resources, measure and evaluate our results, supporting the development and maintenance of a skilled and competitive workforce in alignment with the broader economic development efforts to attract, retain, and grow business in Berks County. One thing that's unique is we are a single workforce board, one of 22 workforce boards across the Commonwealth. We are part of the Southeast PA planning region, which consists of Montgomery, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Philadelphia counties. So our funds are directly funneled through the Department of Labor and Industry and the Department of Human Services. So WIOA and TANF funds primarily are the two main funding streams that the board receives. And these funds are directly funneled into our local PA career link system, where it provides program and services supports to the citizens of Berks County. So the first thing I'd like to discuss is our Berks County Workforce Development Board. We have a 4-year local plan. The current plan was adopted July 1st of 2025 through 2028. This QR code will take you directly to our website, where you will find the summary. This QR code is the summary to a 135-page local plan document. So within this summary, it will tell you where to find specific topics within that larger document. So boards are required to submit this plan, an action plan that aligns and integrates service delivery strategies to support Pennsylvania's vision, strategic and operational goals within the local workforce development areas, as well as the regional goals and strategies. These plans are set forth for direct investment in educational and training programs to ensure that individuals, including youth and individuals within barriers to employment, have the skills to compete in the job market and the employers have a ready supply of skilled workers. The plan also allows us to apply demand-driven strategies in a one-stop delivery system, in our local case, the PA CareerLink in Berks County. Enable economic, education, and workforce partners to build a skilled workforce through innovation and alignment of employment, training, and education programs. So I'll kind of highlight what you will find within these 5 comprehensive sections of the local plan that we put together every 4 years. It does get modified on a 2-year cycle. So we are required as a workforce board to go back through the plan, update information that our partners may be providing services to what's mentioned in the plan, and then submit it directly to labor and industry for review and approval. Within section 1, Berks County at a glance, there is a lot of data. This data has some topics found within the first section of employment, resident commute patterns, labor force participation, population, education, barriers to employment, and local economic conditions. Within section 2, strategic workforce development vision and goals, some topics found within this section is goals, industry priorities, connecting young adults, future talent pipeline, school age, career readiness, and career technical education, and meeting the employer need. Within section 3 of our local plan, it's operational planning of local area workforce system and investment strategies. An overview of the local workforce system structure, including key stakeholders and entities, board committees, our PA CareerLink WIOA funded programs, and workforce services availability. Section 4 of our plan, operational planning, local area workforce system, business and employer engagement, coordination of regional and economic development strategy, strengthening linkages between PA CareerLink service delivery system and unemployment compensation, technology, remote access, transportation, supportive services, and rapid response activities. Section 5 is compliance. Jose? So the Berks County Workforce Development Board identifies industry sector priorities. These are reviewed on a biannual basis. So the current sector priorities that I will review were adopted by the full board in 2024 through 2029. The data that you will see over the next few slides will be updated in June. So the data is a little dated. So this QR code will take you directly to a comprehensive 2-page document of our industry sector priorities. The QR code will still work come June when all the data within is updated. So priority A is manufacturing and healthcare. Healthcare does exclude social assistance. So we're specifically looking at healthcare careers and the demand within the healthcare system. Priority B for us is construction. And we have 2 for priority C, agricultural and educational services or watch industries that we are reviewing. Jose? So within manufacturing, we are looking at the career pathways. So this is our largest sector by employment, holding 31,600 jobs, which makes up 17.4% of our local employment. Where we're looking for is critical current and future skill shortages. So technical occupations consisting of precision machining, industrial maintenance and mechatronics, welders, quality system professionals. This is where we look at and project 17.4% of our local employment. This is where we are going to see our current numbers, but then where is our future skill shortages? And how are we talking about this with our educators and our employers to ensure that we are filling the skill gap of those that have a skill gap or those that are retiring and bringing in a new labor force. Entry-level production worker is a hiring and a retention. Retention is increasingly difficult in our current labor market. Okay. So A, and those of you that have followed industry sector priorities in the past, manufacturing and healthcare weren't always A together. They used to be manufacturing was A, healthcare was B. But within this industry sector priority microscope that we've looked at over the last few years, we've identified that both manufacturing and healthcare are an A for Berks County. Top priority. So this is our second largest sector by employment, making up 25,164 jobs within Berks County, 13.8% of our local employment. We look at on an annual basis, but within these industry sectors, looking at our occupations, what the current employment is, what a 5-year growth opportunity is, the percentage, and then what is the demand in the next 5 years. So on this slide, you will see that we look at registered. This isn't what we're looking at, but this is what we're seeing as what the demand is going to be over the next 5 years. So registered nurses, personal care aides, nursing assistants, licensed practical and licensed vocational nurses, and medical assistants. In 5 years, we're going to see where our demand is. So this is how are we educating, our post-secondary education institutes, our employers to try and get ahead of the curve to ensure that they can then meet the demand and the growth within these fields. Okay. So construction, industry sector priority B. This industry has 7,900 jobs plus 1,900 self-employed contractors within Berks County, 5.3% of our local employment. So we are looking at what our current employment is versus what the 5-year total demand will be. So how do we, work with our employers within Berks County to make sure, again, that they are seeing that demand over the next 5 years? A lot of talk right now in the construction sector is around the data centers that they have been talking about within Pennsylvania, not just Berks County, but that isn't just construction. That includes electrical. And how are we going to get the workforce there, to supply the need of those data centers if they do come within our region? So industry sector priority C is agriculture. This is 3,350 of our current employment. And while 2% of our local employment is small, for us at the Workforce Board as a watch industry, we are working very closely with our Department of Agriculture within the county and really educating individuals that ag isn't just working on a farm. There are jobs that make up the agricultural business, and how do we ensure that we're making those employers aware and meeting the need that they have? So regional demand for mechanic and technicians, again, people don't associate that with ag or a CDL driver with our ag industry, but they all intertwine. Somebody has to be able to fix the equipment. How do we ensure, diesel students coming out of our career and technology centers are getting filtered into this pipeline? The expanding knowledge and the awareness of STEM career pathways in ag and how it's related to the field, as I mentioned. What we're doing locally is working. We are connected with our ag department at the county, encouraging secondary and post-secondary education program and activities to address labor force across this industry. And recently, our county Department of Ag completed a Growing Berks study, which you will find at this QR code for further information on what they are specifically doing to help grow ag in Berks County. Okay. Industry sector C, educational services, career pathways. So this sector is 12,479, 7% of our employment. We are looking at the top 5 educational service occupations. So this doesn't exclude school administration, maintenance, services, and it's the growth over the next 5 years. So our elementary teachers, our secondary school teaching assistants, CTE, really, and where are we headed over the next 5 years, again, to ensure that we are assisting with looking at that employment growth and opportunities for individuals. Okay. So the Berks County Workforce Development Board with partnerships. So a lot of people think we're the PA Career Link, but as I mentioned before, 95% of the funding that we do receive from Labor and Industry and the Department of Human Services goes directly to our contractors that are providing services within our one-stop system. We are the convener of our employers and our education partners. So specifically, we are looking at how do we work with our BCIU, which is already happening to get to our K-12 education system to be able to inform them of what are our industry sectors, where are we headed as I talk about Berks Workforce 2030 in the next now 4 years, since we're already into 2026, and the Berks Business Education Coalition, and ensuring that really as we start with our K-12 is we need career pathways, we need internships, we need opportunities for these young people to help fill our labor participation rate over the next few years. Okay. So the Pennsylvania Career Link, really just an educational piece. This QR code will take you directly to our Career Link Berks website, specifically to our local Career Link located at 1920 Kutztown Road. There are a number of resources for employers. We have paid work experience, also known as internships for young adults. These are specifically for individuals 16 to 24 years of age. Opportunities for both in-school students and out-of-school students, either graduates or individuals that are seeking their high school equivalency diploma. It's 100% funded by the program. There is no cost to the employer. It's an opportunity for a young adult to receive up to 12 weeks of work experience within a field that they're interested in or an entry-level position within a company. Just really to give them that exposure to help them identify what their career pathway might look like. We have on-the-job training opportunities. These are opportunities for employers to receive up to 75% reimbursement during the training period, a maximum of $6,000. This occurs when a company may be hiring an individual, but they identify that there's a skill gap, and that employer is confident that the individual may, fill the position, but just needs some additional training. This on-the-job training opportunity would then allow the employer to bring them on and be reimbursed during that training period to help lower the employer cost of that employee. Incumbent worker training opportunities. This is a big focus for us, employer focus of retaining and upskilling current talent. We collaborate through WEDNET as well. So if employers aren't eligible for WEDNET or they exhaust their WEDNET funding, they could utilize incumbent worker training to upskill current talent of their employees and receive up to 75% reimbursement. Okay. So general resources that are available to individuals at the Career Link. There's general workshops, public workshops that are available on a monthly basis. Those can be found also on the Career Link website under the events page. Individuals can receive individual training funds. So if they're interested in CDL training, CNA training, a training opportunities that's connected with a high priority occupation with an eligible training provider such as RAC, Berks Career and Technology Center, they would be eligible to receive up to $6,000 to lower the cost that an individual would essentially be paying out of pocket. We have high school equivalency diploma classes for young adults, specifically 17 to 24. We also have, not listed on here, we also have an EARN program. These are individuals that are referred directly from the county assistance office that are coming to the program to receive assistance with an end goal of then coming off of TANF or SNAP benefit. Okay. So Berks Workforce 2030, this is really the meat of the presentation, and there is a lot of information on here. The full study report is available on our website. It is available in a PDF format. I also have printed copies that if you prefer to have a printed copy, please reach out to me and I'd be happy to ensure that you get a printed copy. And also on the website, the recommendations from the report that I will be reviewing today is also in a separate document, at least a little more easily manageable than the full document. Again, both PDF clickable versions available on the website, and the QR code is at the end of the presentation. So in December of 2025, the board adopted the Berks Workforce 2030 report to identify current population trends, labor force participation, education, numeracy and literacy skills, mobility, commuting, remote work, housing market, and attainability. The planning committee of the Workforce Development Board is the driver to help us at the Workforce Development Board. And Dave, lucky enough, gets to sit on our planning committee. Fortunate to have him and his knowledge and really help driving us to set our priorities of this plan and the recommendations for the next 4 years. So today I'm going to start with population trends and labor force participation. This is a highlight of what you would find in the first section of the report. It's really a highlight of stable population and our capped participation within Berks County. We really need to focus on the competitiveness will depend on how well we retain our workers, we strengthen our pipelines in Berks County, and we prepare replacements for the retiring talent. So some of the findings. The stable age population during this study, and let me back up 1 second. We at the board did not conduct the study. We had an RFP process, a request for proposal, and we had an entity, TPMA out of Indiana, do this report for us in conjunction with our planning committee input. So stable prime age population. So this tells us that this is 25 to 64. It's our modest workforce expansion, and the demand must be met through the participation and the retention of the current workers. So what's the recommendation? Really focusing on the underutilized groups, parents, veterans, young adults, immigrant professionals, and looking at those groups and how do we bring them together to educate them on the opportunities for employment and a reason really to want to stay here in Berks County. Mid-year growth between the ages of 40 and 49, but younger cohorts are remaining flat while older cohorts, 55 to 64, are declining. These are signals of succession risks. How do we strengthen our early career pipelines and really look at helping employers with succession planning to help with the labor force participation? The labor force participation is high, but it's capped. Again, the retirement of the older workers is going to deepen technical, trade, and clinical gaps. We're going to be looking at how do we help build the advancement and the succession pathways with the employers within our community. And persistent shortages, healthcare, skilled trades, technical roles. Even though we have a stable population, we're still going to see these shortages. Again, we have to look at the emphasis of retention, the job quality, and how do we help these individuals reduce the barriers that they may be facing, such as childcare, transportation, and housing. Okay. Education, numeracy, and literacy skills. Addressing these gaps is essential for us to keep workers advancing, employers competitive, and industry supplied with job-ready talent. I see Judy on the call. We had a training and IP committee, meeting this morning. This was a big topic for us, and how do we get in the forefront of it? Foundation skills. We're seeing as 1 in 3 employers report weaker English proficiency in healthcare and manufacturing. We're seeing many residents lack the skills for mid-skilled jobs. So for us, how do we look at expanding contextualized training, embedding literacy and math into that training? I hear from a lot of employers, they're taking it on their own to adjust what they're doing to bring individuals on and adapting to the current workforce, such as implementing, literacy skills, math training. We have a board member who shared with us that they're, doing on-the-job math training for individuals during the first week of onboarding. It's now taking them 2 weeks to get through that basic math of being able to read a tape measure and understanding where they are in the math to be successful within their employment. The applied math challenges, nearly 30% of the employers noting gaps. And when I say 30%, that's the 30% of the employers that were willing to be part of a focus group or answer a survey as part of this study. It is not 30% of our overall employers within Berks. Industry pipelines are strained, increasing, as we look again at literacy and math gaps, increasing in errors, goes to safety risks, and then training costs. So how do we strengthen our employer education partnerships, aligning, curriculum with credentials with job demands? Math readiness. This has always been a big topic of conversation regarding over half of the Berks eighth graders, scoring below basic post-pandemic. English learners at risk of inclusion from advancing. Really looking at how can we facilitate career-connected learning through our internships, apprenticeships, project-based experiences that do integrate the numeracy and literacy. So all of these recommendations are things, again, that we will be looking at prioritizing who in the community is doing this, who's doing it well, how do we bring them to the table to partner with all of us? We're a small team, so really the community will play a role in helping us drive this forward. Okay. Okay. Mobility, commuting, and remote work. We looked at this to really help us understand what our labor force makeup was, where individuals are coming from, how many are we losing outside of county bounds to different counties surrounding us for employment opportunities. So this is looking at young adults and graduates. They're the most mobile, and they're the ones that are leaving Berks County for larger metros. We have the brain drain. For those of you that are familiar with that, that's a few years ago that study was conducted, looking at skilled young workers, again, leaving, and then we're losing our local talent base. So how do we expand retention pipelines? Again, the recommendations, we talk about this through internship to hires. Really, it's a countywide talent pool of capable young adults that really could help our employers fill that pipeline. Our high outbound commuting, 40% of the residents work outside the county. So we are looking at, again, how do we help attract individuals to Berks County? What is it about Berks County that would make individuals come here, work here, live here? Inflows from nearby counties. We're looking at workers, but often with lower education levels. And it shows that there's a mismatch of skills, inflows not offsetting the loss of higher education credentials. And then how do we reduce the outbound commuting and keep our talent here in Berks County? One thing that we looked at about is remote work. It lags 8.9% in Berks versus 15.2 annually or nationally rather. Again, some jobs don't have the capability about being remote. Manufacturing is not a job that you can work remote, right? So it's how do we look at employers and say, okay, what can you do internally to either promote a hybrid schedule or flexibility? Those are all things that we hear about, what's new and different in this employer A versus employer B, and how might you look at what your policies are to see how you may then retain employees and attract them. We're looking at competitive rate rising. Neighborhoods often pay high. Again, they have more flexibility. Limited hybrid remote options, which don't make Berks County attractive. So again, just educating those employers of, going back to the wheelhouse and saying, what can we do to attract individuals to retain them here? Okay, so housing market and attainability. Housing attainability directly shapes our workforce stability. Berks risks losing both the talent and the future investment without a coordinated action on supply attainability of housing. I will say this is a conversation that is occurring at the county level. Pam Shoop-Mennett is leading a group to talk about housing here in Berks County and what does that look like. And it's really interesting how it all intertwines. So I'm learning all of that as I go through this adventure too. But housing costs have far outpaced the wages. Home prices are nearly doubled since 2020 and rents up by 25%. Workforce participation in regards to that, when younger and lower wage workers are forced into long commutes or out migration to find higher employment wages or another place to live that is less, we are then losing that pipeline. So one of the recommendations is, how do we link housing supports? What's available to individuals out there that are in need of support for housing so they can find employment here in Berks County? A growing share of household costs, with nearly half of renters who spend more than 30% of their income on housing, when affordable housing is unavailable near a job. So again, commuting 30, 45 minutes to a job or even over an hour because the housing isn't available. How do we increase affordable supply by updating zoning, supporting multifamily development, and encouraging starter units within Berks County? Essential workers are increasingly cannot afford to live near their jobs. So that's one thing we're looking at with employers. Like, do you have an opportunity to supply a housing stipend, or is there an opportunity for a different type of model to be built near a facility to attract workers so they don't have a long commute? While housing market and attainability is not a priority specifically for the Workforce Board, we're looking at it from an employment standpoint and how this then is a barrier and it feeds into our labor force participation over the next 5 years. That's it. Okay. So these are the recommendations and opportunities. Like I mentioned, this QR code will take you directly to our website where you can find the full report. Do not be alarmed. The full report is 192 pages, but the report itself is only the first 56 pages. The rest of the report, you will find all the data and statistics linking to the information within the report. So we are looking at how, at the board, do we take the recommendations that TPMA provided us and prioritize them so we stay focused within the first year, and what do we move to the second year, and who within our community is a partner? So key strengths: we have strong employer education partnerships to sustain pipelines. We have internships we have co-op experience. How do we expand those then for those interns to become an employee of that entity? Because you have the talent, and how do you retain them? Community supports. We have ESL, math, case management system, boosting stability, and looking at growing your own model. How is there tuition support models that build loyalty for individuals that want to stay? And really looking at investing in your current pipeline and your current employees to retain them. Where our opportunities are: expanding high school career readiness and math and science pipelines. We hear about math from both, more the employer sector here at the board about the struggle with individuals coming in, they don't have the math skills. How do we look at that? But we're also now in the healthcare sector hearing students who have a career pathway in the science field aren't prepared when they graduate and have to do remedial work within the science part. Scale apprenticeships and the flexible upskilling of programs. Investing in childcare, transport, housing, healthcare supports. Those are all barriers that individuals face on a different level, whether it's a young adult, a middle-aged individual within employment. There's a barrier, and how do we look at that as an opportunity to help those individuals? Build clear pathways, retain our college students and our young professionals. We have great colleges in Berks County. We have a great community college. How do we keep those graduates here in Berks County? If we don't have the housing, we're not going to keep them. If we don't have, the connections with our employers to fill their pipeline for our graduates, we're not going to retain them either. So those are all things that we will be looking at. These are all the recommendations from the study. Again, building on that, and how do we just continue to bring people together to talk about these things that are found in this report. But also, if it's happening in the community and it wasn't captured during this study, those are also things that we need to be hearing from too. I told you, Dave, I wouldn't talk for an hour.
Yeah, well, you just have a little bit of work in front of you.
Just a little.
I've got a few questions, and then we've got several people in the audience who've raised some questions that we're going to get to.
Sure.
We know that there's an aging workforce, and that's a challenge. I don't think you're going to work hard to retain people like me working in the workplace. But could you talk a little bit more about the impact that has and the emerging workforce and the challenges that the emerging workforce are facing?
I would say a challenge is, how do you take somebody who's been doing the job for the last 30 years and get them to educate somebody coming into it, right? So we also think about how technology changes. AI is a big part of that. Are employers up to speed with bringing in those individuals and being able to, look at their process to kind of take that young adult or middle-aged career individual and say, okay, now I need you to work with this person and absorb as much as you can over the next, so many years. But we're also looking at it from a standpoint of, for the employer side, do you have somebody within your company who may have an interest in that, retiring population that could start receiving that upskill opportunity within? That is a big focus.
You mentioned this as well, the fact that the number of people living in Berks County working outside of the county is growing fairly dramatically, but the number of people from outside the county working in Berks County is not growing at all. What's the causes? What's the challenges? What can we do about that?
I mean, this report kind of lays out some of the challenges. Housing being the one where we saw the reason why. But I think it's just being more aware of what are we offering, what's available to individuals, both, to attract them to come to Berks County, where the employment opportunities are. How is that being, driven and marketed to individuals that may be looking at employment? So I think we have an opportunity to look at what's being done currently to attract talent and where maybe be able to shift in attracting talent to Berks County.
And we did a forum earlier this year or last year, I can't remember which, on the absent need for hiring teachers and what was happening and how that was affecting education here. You mentioned education as being a target industry. What can we do to help with that?
I think, I go back to the high priority occupation list. That gets reviewed every year annually by the Workforce Board. It's a collaborated effort across the Southeast PA region. I think it really starts with, early childhood education, right? And getting individuals interested from the early childhood education standpoint and showing them what the career pathway is. If I start here, I can be an elementary teacher in the next 4 years, right? And this is what my salary is going to be. I really believe that it goes back to the career pathway and the awareness that we need to provide within our K-12 system.
And have you had conversations with school districts or the IU about doing that?
Yeah, so those are upcoming. So it's, getting in front of the right group of the school districts. Many of them were part of a pre-release presentation of this back in October at the BBEC Summit. So now, yes, it is a follow-up conversation. with the IU and to our school districts to make them aware. We need, career pathways and awareness and what does that look like? And every district's doing something a little bit different. So then really understanding what everybody's doing and how do we, collaborate as one.
One of the things that was evident when we were having the discussions about the 2030 report was the consultant said that they did interviews with a lot of business leaders, and many of them, I think in some cases, depending on the sector, almost half of them had no connection with an educational institution in Berks County. What do we do to foster that? And I know we've got some education people here that could help, but
Yeah, so I know you and I talked about this at extent as we reviewed this report and what does that look like. And as I go through 2026, my goal is to get out and meet with more people and how do we partner and what does that look like? So one thing that I think about back at the manufacturing summit in the fall, I had somebody from Penn State tell me they need employers that their engineering students can find internships at, right? And so how do we build that connection? So for me, same thing as the K to 12. Who within the college sectors in our post-secondary education system is working with employers or helping students find internships or employment opportunities? How do I bring them to the table and then connect them with our business resources? Whether it's our business services team within the Career Link, or connecting with Keith Stam at the GRCA as their director of workforce development while he's working with employers. I think it's an opportunity that we have to say everybody may have a different need. So understanding what that niche might be of the need of our post-secondary ed and then getting our employers connected. Because if the employers aren't connected, we're not retaining our college students.
okay, we have several people who've raised questions as we've been moving through here. I'm going to just ask them if they want to do it, raise their question publicly with you. Kevin Murphy, you had a comment early on that I think is important. Talked about certain types of activities and things that are entrepreneurial and creative. So go ahead, Kevin. We can't hear you, Kev. Oh, well, I'll go back and read your question if you want. So Kevin talked about the priority areas and sectors that you were interested in, and he said, don't they devalue liberal education and give short shrift to emerging innovation in our community? Things like the battery companies that are doing very creative sorts of things or total experience learning.
Can
How
you
do
hear me,
we?
Dave?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go
Oh,
ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, that was the question. I mean, I think that what's really beginning to power innovation or the economy around here is innovation. You look at the opening of a medical college, the research into battery technology, the emergence of total experience learning. And it feels to me like, focusing on manufacturing, healthcare, a couple of industries really devalues the liberal education that leads to that kind of innovation.
So I can understand where you're coming from. I think, from us, from a board standpoint, we're looking at the employment sectors as the industry specifically of what's growing in Berks County. There are great things that are happening. It's also how do we tell those stories a little bit more? And that's part of, when I look at some of these recommendations is if employers are doing great things or there's, the innovation for battery or, total learning experience, does everybody know and is everybody connected to those things, which I would assume some of it, yes. But it just, for us, it's really the employment sectors of what's growing in Berks County and how do we fill those pipelines. I'm not really sure if I answered your question. I'd be happy to have a conversation offline specifically on what you're looking for.
Thanks.
Brandy, you had several questions. You want to go ahead?
Absolutely. So I am with the Olivet Boys and Girls Club, and one question that I had, I'm open to anyone's answer, and the answer may be I don't know, that's fine. How can an organization achieve recognition for a training program by the state as a qualified certification course? I know in this field that I'm in, working with youth, we create programs all the time. We have accredited programs behind us, but as we develop new programs that are intended to develop, upcoming youth into the workforce, what would be a pathway that is like identified for, recognition that goes beyond, hey, you did these trainings? Um, Not sure if that's making sense, but just let me know.
I don't know that I have the specific answer. We could certainly, again, happy to talk through it a little bit and learn a little bit more of specific that you're looking at the Olivet Boys and Girls Club and help connect, whether it's, with the labor and industry directly, or if there's different avenues. So I can provide my email address. Happy if you would like to reach out.
Definitely, that'll be great. Thank you so much.
Brandy, you had a second question. Do you want to ask that one too?
Absolutely. So, I had a question. How can we close the gap between available employment opportunities and eligible employees? Are there any like job boards where we could post these opportunities? I know we typically use platforms like Indeed, Facebook, Instagram, and as much as that, reaches a certain population, I think there could be areas that we're missing. Like we have a series of open employment opportunities right now, for even youth age 17 and beyond. But I feel that we're currently limited in our reach. So if anyone's aware of other job boards or like organizations to share these opportunities, I know I have a couple that I'd be happy to put out there.
Yeah, I would say specifically for us at the Workforce Development Board, the PA Career Link is a Commonwealth website where employers can create a profile and post any position working with the local Career Link office. So I'd be happy to connect you directly to the business services team. All of it would have a profile on the website, and then job postings could be posted there, which could reach a different population or a broader network, and even individuals outside of Berks County can search employment specifically, to all of it or to the county itself.
Great, thank you so much.
Iris, you had not so much a comment, but a statement you wanted to make.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And good afternoon, everybody. For those that don't know me, I am Iris Bellman. I work for Habitat for Humanity here in Berks County, along with Tim Daly, who's our executive director. And unfortunately, he couldn't be here today. But basically, what I wanted to say, Amber talked about Pam Mennett's workforce group, and Tim and I are in that, dealing with the housing issue here in Reading and Berks County. And what we have is a first-time homeowner program, and it focuses basically on the workforce income families. It's a 12 to 14 month program. And Anita Powell, who's our director of family services, she's, I think, on this session today. But what Habitat is trying to do, and we're making some headway, is take the blighted properties that are within the city, and along with the Reading Redevelopment Authority, and what we've been able to acquire through regular market value sales, is take those properties and renovate them and provide first-time homeowner opportunities to our qualified applicants. So we're trying to work with that workforce unit and that workforce population to give them the opportunity for a first-time homeowner program availability and live and work in Reading and have, easy access. Tim likes to say housing that's affordable as opposed to affordable housing because it's two separate definitions. But we're trying to do and work with the county and the city to kind of remediate the blight and provide the housing stock that is available for these workforce families.
Amber, I want to talk a little bit quickly about the transportation issue. I know several years ago we did community forum and we had people from Bell and Evans talking about the fact that in order to recruit workers out of the city of Reading, they ended up having to do a bus service to get people there. Have there been conversations about how to deal with that transportation issue?
I do know there are conversations. I do know that I want to call it BARDA, but I know it's South,
Right.
everybody knows what I'm talking about, BARDA. I know that they just did a recent study and looking again at, changing different opportunities of, public transportation. But yeah, I mean, transportation, I think, is an issue. Our public transportation system only goes so far. But if an employer needs it, to your point, Bell and Evans, East Penn, and they can work, to get special things implemented to help individuals, get there. We aren't seeing anything outside of the traditional public transportation other than, Uber and things like that.
You had mentioned literacy being an issue, and I'm presuming that's language as much as it is being traditional literate. You want to talk about that a little bit more about what that challenge is and how employers are working to deal with that?
Yeah, so English as a second language, we have great programs that are happening. I know Ryan Bryce is on the call.
Yeah.
Him and his team are doing great things, working with employers. It's bringing that into the industry, so you can hire that population. And what does that look like? One example I can give is I know of an employer who brought on somebody for their education and training team that is specifically ESL, and they are going out on the floor within their sector and providing ESL to help that individual learn their employment. So again, what are employers doing? I think that's really where we need to know, what are you doing in your workplace? Are you taking advantage of ESL for the workplace that's offered? Or bringing in individuals to teach that and cohorts to teach individuals ESL within the workplace. As far as the literacy piece, we look at that as well. Thanks, Aria. I knew I was forgetting RAC at some point with ESL Spanish in the workplace, which is a great opportunity too for employers. I do numeracy, right? We go back to numeracy and literacy and it's the math, but it's also the basic skills. Individuals that we're seeing coming into the career link that are looking for a high school equivalency diploma are coming in at a 3rd and 4th grade reading and math level. That takes a very long time for somebody to attain a diploma and keep them engaged in the program. And then what type of employment opportunities are there? So those are all things that we are looking at.
Want to talk about the healthcare industry and what you see as being the particular challenges there. We do have some institutions that are very strong in the healthcare industry, and how do we engage them and try to address challenges you're seeing in the healthcare side?
So there is a current healthcare industry partnership grant that the board does have funding for. GRCA is the convener of that healthcare industry partnership. So we are hopeful that we'll receive additional funds for July 1st to keep that healthcare industry partnership going and to bring champions to that partnership to be able to really understand the challenges a little bit deeper within each healthcare provider. But it's the competitiveness. We hear second and third shift are the hardest positions to fill when the wages aren't always competitive. For example, patient care assistants average $17, $18 an hour for a third shift, but you can go to Target or Starbucks or, Wawa
Mhm.
Sheets and make that, and the schedule's a little bit different and fits your needs. So we also are hearing how do they bring training back into the healthcare pipeline and train those current, PCAs and help upskill them into higher employment to help retain them. That's the biggest conversation that we have been hearing around healthcare specifically, is filling those second and third shift opportunities.
But Amber, you've talked about a lot of challenges and things facing the county and the employers in the county. How much of that responsibility is going to fall on the Workforce Development Board, and how much of that should be shared by the rest of us?
Yeah, I mean, we can't do it all, right? Like, so our responsibility is to know what's happening and how do we provide resources and help navigate through that. And that's really where, these recommendations within the 2030 study is going to help bring people to the table, and really help us align the priorities and really put groups together. So I would envision, bringing people, the employer sector, the education sector, and how do we intertwine those and get people in the room to share these ideas, because it's not just us at the Workforce Development Board. We're all in this together, whether it's positive or negative at the end of the day.
So how does somebody get in touch with you to help partner? How can they talk to you about this?
Sure. So I can share my contact information in the chat. I'm happy to, reach out, schedule a separate conversation, dive a little deeper, if you have questions regarding the report itself or just want to be connected. Dave, I would really envision that after we identify the priorities within the 2030 plan, that then that information will be available on our website. And then at that point, we'll start pulling people together and have conversations and bringing them to the table. Because this report doesn't tell us all the good things that are also happening in Berks County, right? So within this report, there's examples of things that are happening within surrounding counties and Berks County, but not everything. So, I go back to Kevin Murphy's question, but also to his point about the total learning experience. If we aren't highlighting that and everybody being aware of these programs or opportunities for individuals that are out there, we aren't able to highlight the good, and then we also just look at the challenge instead.
And I did have another question I wanted to ask you back earlier on in the process. Agriculture and manufacturing, it seems to me Berks County, a major industry, part of the economy here is food processing. Where does that fall into? Is it agriculture? Is it manufacturing? What is it?
So I think for us, it kind of falls into both. And really, how do we highlight that and look at where it falls, right? So the Manufacturing Resource Center is really also working with our ag department at the county to look at manufacturers that are considered food processing, Giorgio mushroom, Clover dairy farms, and really how do they kind of intertwine. So I think as we kind of go forward, that's something that we also need to be looking at is, is it food processing or is it agriculture or is it manufacturing, and how do they intersect?
Okay. So it's something to still be sorted out.
I think so, yes.
So Amber, you were right. We're going to hit about an hour and not an hour and a half. Anything else you want to say? Anybody have any other questions that you want to share with us?
I do not have anything else. Like I said, I'm happy to meet with anybody, have further conversations, learn how we can collaborate more. That is a personal goal of mine as, the director of the board, just about 6 months in. So again, just building that partnership and relationship within the county.
Yeah, you've got a heavy burden on your shoulders, kiddo. There's a lot to accomplish, a lot of ambition here,
You
but
got it.
it's good stuff, and hopefully people will engage with you. Um, we need to figure out how we engage more people in partnerships, uh, bring more people together in collective activity. That's always been a challenge here in Berks County. Um, but it sounds like you're willing and able to do that. So thank you for this. I think it was a great presentation. We will be sending the recording out to everybody. I want to mention really quickly some of the upcoming things that we're going to be doing. And Jose submitted some things. I'll let him talk about them quickly here as well. So Jose, you go first and I'll finish.
Dave, we have a raised hand
Oh,
from
where?
Mary.
Mary Chown. Okay. We can let Mary talk.
You kind of said everything, Dave, that I was going to say about, partnerships and collaborations across the county. And there's so many people and entities, both for-profit, nonprofit, government entities that are doing wonderful things. The issue that I see, because I deal with grants, so people call and say, hey, we're doing this awesome thing. Can you all find us grants? Yes, I can. But down the street, they're doing exactly the same thing. And what I get all the time is, oh, I didn't know. And I said, maybe we could collaborate. Maybe we could partner. Some people are good at partnering. And when they find that out, they host meetings and maybe they apply to the grant together to fund their things. And some people say, no, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Funding is so limited nowadays that it would be more, preferable if people understood what someone down the street was doing. And then we could apply for a cohort type grant where everybody gets a piece. So, I'm constantly looking at the web and trying to figure out how I can put these people together. And my business has branched to doing for-profit work. FM Browns is one of my clients. I have a lot of architectural and engineering firms. They need help. They're scared of apprenticeships because what comes with the apprenticeship grants is so much work that they just say, forget it. We're not going to do that. But we do have so many good pockets of things happening and so many agencies and institutions doing wonderful work all in this space to solve these issues or to help with this problem. It's just that not everybody, and I would say there's a majority that don't know that these same things or the similar program is happening down the street. So
Yeah.
I like what we're talking about how do we all come together and collaborate and connect, and where is that central focus and who's responsible for that, and how do we find out what's happening and invite those people in. That is a struggle that I just wanted to make sure that we all knew about, which you and Amber both presented nicely right before I spoke.
Well, thank you, Mary. Hopefully that's part of why we do these things, is to try to bring people together and understand issues and that are important to the broader community and get people to talk to each other. Jose, do you want to mention a couple of the upcoming things again? And you posted several of them in the website, but in the chat function.
Yeah, of course. Reminder, sign up for our newsletter. It's free 5 days a week. And on every other Saturday, thanks to the United Way, we're publishing Community Spotlight, recognizing those community members that are not in the usual spotlight and in the public view, but people that are doing great work for the community, from students to people that help kids cross the street, that type of things. So Good Day Berks, the links is there. The open house on March 18th. Registration link is free, and you will be able to have a behind the scenes look at our reporting and learn more about our bureau and plans for this year. Save the date for the Ideas Festival on October 3rd. I'm sharing the link for a form where you can submit ideas, topics, speakers that you would like to see at this event. And I'm sharing now what Dave is gonna talk about the March Community Forum. So the registration link is already in the chat. Thank you all for coming, and I will pass it again to Dave.
Okay, I'm going to mention several of the upcoming ones that we have coming. We're doing the Gateway Bridge renovations, which is a really innovative way of recapturing the riverfront and connecting West Reading and Reading together. The Schuylkill River Greenways are going to be making that presentation along with Barrio Alegría. They've been having conversations about what they can do to improve the riverfront, essentially. Then the following month in April, we're going to be doing the new Innovation Academy in the city of Reading, the new high school that focuses on innovation. A really interesting opportunity for the students in Reading, which I think could fit into what we're talked about here, Amber, in some ways. We're beginning to have conversations about doing a program on social services in the rural areas of the county. That's a real problem in many of the rural areas of the county. People don't have access to things like healthcare and other important social services. And there's a group beginning to talk about using the libraries to do that. And then, as Amber mentioned, we are going to be having a presentation by the Planning Commission and Pam on how Reading and Berks are going to address the housing shortage here in Berks County. So lots of good things coming up, lots of interesting conversations. Hopefully at least as interesting as what this one was. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Amber. We'll be sending the video out to everybody. There's some things in the comment section that we'll probably be sending out the links to some of those things as well. And we look forward to seeing you all at our next event. Thank you.